morning again, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to a special occasion, which is the formation of the Institute of Directors in Liberia. This is in collaboration with ACGN Fronting, Africabio Enterprises, and Women on Boards Network in Liberia. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to run you quickly through today's program. This event is a hybrid event. Those of us online and those on the ground at Mamba Point Hotel, Monrovia, Liberia. We are hoping to have a 3-hour interaction. We start off with an opening prayer. We'll receive a welcome address. We'll receive some solidarity messages. We'll have an opening address by the chair of African Corporate Governance Network, who himself will chair today's event. And we'll receive our guest of honor to give us a special address. We will have 3 presentations. Then we will form the Institute of Directors Liberia. We'll go through some motions for the formation of the IoD Liberia. We'll receive the chair's closing remarks, then a vote of thanks and closing prayer. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Reverend Mrs. Angela Carmen Apia. I happen to be the Vice President of the Institute of Directors Ghana, also the Acting Board Secretary for the African Corporate Governance Network. I will be co-emceeing with Mrs. Clarine S. Vaughan of the Africabio's Executive Roundtable. Thank you very much. Without wasting much time, may I invite Ms. Lillian Burst of the Women on Boards Network Liberia to give us the opening prayer. Thank you.
Father God, we thank you for your blessings that are new every morning. We pray that you give us eyes to see them. We pray that you give us eyes to see your truth and the wisdom on which you founded the world. Give us eyes to see your purpose for our lives, given that you have created mankind to govern. We lift up to you these proceedings, and we ask that you impart us with that wisdom. You bless the organization that is being founded here today and all the organizations that have supported it. We thank you for the resources. We thank you for the human and financial resources to drive them forward. And we thank you, God, that all those who will be blessed through this will be open to that blessing, open to the shift in culture from lawlessness and carelessness or simply lack of understanding of structures and procedures, that they will embrace order, that our economies might grow and that you might be glorified. In the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Chair, with your permission,
Amen.
I would like to invite one of Africa's best in the person of Ms. Candice Eastman, who happens to be the founder and CEO of Africabio Enterprises Incorporated, who also happens to have a broad range of experiences in strategic management and leading business development teams in private industries. She happens to be the former Deputy Minister of Commerce and Trade in Liberia with a board experience spanning across profits and non-profit organizations in Liberia. Mr. Chair, with your permission, I invite Ms. Candice Eastman to give us a welcome address. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam MC. Good morning to all of you. If I could just go through our protocol. Good morning, Governor Aloysius Talu. I thought there would be Minister Janine Cooper here, she may be in later, and our Deputy Minister of Commerce, George Wolo. In person, we also have our former Foreign Minister, Monie Captan, who is also the Chairman of the Board of Liberia Electricity Corporation. We have the Board Chairman, Ms. May Bright Juru. Our sponsors, Futa Corporation, and in-kind sponsor, Daily Observer today. Online, we want to recognize the Institute of Directors, our chair, Rockson Dogbegah, president of IoD Ghana, Patrick Chisanga, who is the past president of IoD, Dr. Mike Juru, Vice President of the Corporate Governance Network. We also want to recognize all of you in the audience here and all those online. Thank you and welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. Your presence obviously means that you find this very valuable. And we know that you'll be receiving a lot of information on the formation of the IoD here in Liberia. This is our stakeholders meeting, and I welcome you to ask questions as we move along, listen intently, as we all understand that this is very important to all of our organizations and to our business environment here in Liberia. So I just want to say thank you for your presence here today and a big welcome to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Candice Eastman. Mr. Chair, I would like to humbly take the solidarity messages. We will take one from Executive Roundtable from Mrs. Clarine S. Vaughan, then from Mrs. Mai Ure, Women on Boards Network Liberia, from the Liberia Chamber of Commerce, Councillor Neitu Oswald Tua, the Liberia Business Association, Mr. James N. Strother. Then from the ESG Advisory Lead for North and West Africa, Mr. Mawine. And then the African Peer Review Mechanism, Ms. Tumi Dlamini. Ladies and gentlemen, may we hear the solidarity messages. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Clarine Simpson Vaughn, the Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for Africabio Enterprises. In 2015, Africabio established an executive roundtable. This was a forum for C-suite executives to come around the table and openly discuss the business environment in Liberia, as well as leadership development of those working in the country. When approached, the Executive Roundtable has more than 20 private sector businesses that sit around the table on a quarterly basis to have these very open, transparent, and important conversations. So some of them are seated around the room today. I hope you have an opportunity to get to meet them. When the African Corporate Governance Network approached Liberia to establish an institute of directors, we found at the Executive Roundtable that this was sort of the next very logical step. As business owners working in this environment, we think it's very important and certainly critical for businesses to practice ethically, to be able to have good corporate governance, and to be able to attract investors to Liberia as we seek about running our businesses. So this is a very important next step for those executives sitting around the table. And with that, we are certainly in solidarity with the formation, should we be accepted, of starting an Institute of Directors here in Liberia. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I represent the Women on Boards Network in Liberia. It's a network, and as the name goes, it's obvious it's a network of women, professional women from all across, from different walks of life, who come together to try to get more diversity on boards in Liberia, both in the private and the public sector. So obviously, as we try to get more women directors, the Institute of Directors is close to our heart. So we are praying and hoping that this organization actually is formed in Liberia, because most of the women that we have in our network are looking forward to getting better training, to be able to network with other directors, so that they are ready to be placed on boards. I want to thank those around the table. I see a lot of corporations here, both from the private sector and from government, and I just want you all to know that this network exists. So as you look for directors, know that we have a vast number of women who are quite competent to serve on boards, and from different sectors. It is our pleasure to be a part of the organizing committee of the formation of the Institute of Directors. We're happy to see, as I said, the quality of people around the table, both here physically and I'm sure on the Zoom call. We ask you all to please come up, help us out to make this institute a reality. Thank you very much.
Good morning to all. I'm also 12th President of your Chamber of Commerce, and I bring you greetings from the Executive Council and members of the Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you all for the invitation to participate in the strategic workshop on corporate governance for the establishment of the Institute of Directors in Liberia. Good corporate governance ensures that a business environment is fair and transparent, and that employees can be held accountable for their action. Conversely, weak corporate governance leads to waste, mismanagement, and corruption. Regardless of the type of venture, only good governance can deliver sustainable and solid business performance. We note that there is a delicate balance of power that relies on three critical anchors. This consists of the shareholders, management, and board directors. Each has its own responsibility, but they work together for the system to be balanced and effective. Corporations of every size are key to the creation of wealth in modern society. They are the main creators of economic value and employment. The way they are built and governed is crucial to a country's economic development. Good corporate governance means more efficient utilization of resources, better access to capital, better and higher quality employment opportunities, and a better chance of developing a sustained way efficient domestic or regional capital markets. Good corporate governance is also a prerequisite for attracting equity capital that can contribute to domestic sustainable growth. Credible transparency, accountability, and shareholder protection mechanisms are important in attracting foreign direct investment. Corporate governance is also important for the effectiveness of public institutions. Better governed companies are less likely to commit fraud, disobey the law, and bribe regulators and officials. Therefore, good corporate governance is essential and critical for a country's economic development. Notwithstanding, there are constraints and barriers that might hinder the implementation and promotion of corporate governance in the country. These include weak or non-existent law enforcement mechanism, abuse of shareholder rights, lack of commitment on the part of boards of directors, lack of adherence to the regulatory framework, weak enforcement and monetary system, and lack of transparency and disclosure. Hence, these constraints and barriers to the effective implementation and promotion of corporate governance have to be removed, because these barriers can affect both domestic and foreign private investors, but they may have, and they do have, a disproportionate impact on foreign investors who usually have higher visibility and who tend to adhere most strictly to legal requirements. It is the Chamber of Commerce goal to help create a thriving Liberian economy that is conducive for commercial, industry, and trade, where businesses succeed and people prosper. Therefore, the Chamber will partner with organizations here advocating for good corporate governance and the removal of relative bottlenecks and impediments, thereby improving Liberia's image and attracting foreign direct investment. It is our hope that this strategic workshop will further enhance and increase the awareness of the importance of good corporate governance and its positive impact on the development and growth of our economy. Thank you.
Hello, Moaz. I see you're ready. Please go for it.
Hi, hello, how are you? Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here to join you as part of this launching event, which is for which I'm extremely pleased and obviously honored to represent IFC during this event. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for this ambitious and interesting endeavor. I think it's very important that we rely on and have an expanded number of institute of directors in our continent, so as we make sure that we are advancing corporate governance, the corporate governance agenda forward, and making successful, reaching successful milestones. I know many of you. For those who I don't know as of yet, my name is Mawine. I'm leading IFC's ESG advisory practice in West Africa, so including Liberia and North Africa. I'm based in the region, been working extensively in Liberia and Sierra Leone and other countries. Liberia is one of the countries where we had the best successes actually on corporate governance, in particular with the Women on Boards Network, which I salute here, and best regards to the team. We've had a lot of engagements with the institution. We had a lot of successes. We supported them a lot, thanks to the support of my colleague Jacqueline, especially, and also Mohammed. And I know that Jacqueline is connected today. I think this is an important milestone for Liberia and also for ACGN and for Africa as a whole. For those who still don't know it, IFC has been working as part of or in the frame of corporate governance programs and projects that we have set up in different countries and in the region in particular. However, that cycle of corporate governance programs has closed, and we are in the process of creating a new form of programs which will combine not only corporate governance, but also environmental and social practices in the frame of what we call now, it's a new paradigm, what we call an ESG programs. These are being designed, will be launched in a number of countries. Unfortunately, for now, we don't have specific dates for such program in Liberia. We have one that will open up in Ghana in the next few months. We are looking at other countries. So we will obviously update you as soon as we have more clarity and visibility in terms of what we will be doing in Liberia in the near future. But again, IFC has been supporting not only institutions in Liberia, but also the ACGN as a regional and continental institute. And I'm sure that we will do our best to carry on and keep supporting you and contributing to your development and making sure that corporate governance, and now increasingly ESG and sustainability, as a concept becomes really on top of the agenda of policymakers, business players, and all stakeholders in the region. Again, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very pleased and honored to be here, and I look forward to a fruitful discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I saw Ms. Dlamini. If she is still online, would like to hear from you. Itumileng Dlamini of the African Peer Review Mechanism. Great.
Thank you so much, Program Director, Executive Governor, Central Bank of Liberia, Chairperson of the African Corporate Governance Network, as well as all representatives of government and business community in Liberia. Ladies and gentlemen, it is truly a pleasure to be with you this morning, and on behalf of the African Peer Review Mechanism, which is an organ of the African Union, I am humbled to extend our sincere congratulations to both the government as well as the business community of Liberia for the launch of the Institute of Directors. We applaud and we support the collaborative efforts of the stakeholders represented here this morning, including the African Corporate Governance Network, as well as the women on boards in Liberia, specifically for the work that they do, for all of you to come together to support this milestone initiative, to learn from one another and have a platform for a peer exchange of practices and ideas to improve corporate governance. And of course, we all know that the improvement of corporate governance in any country determines the sustainability of companies, economic development, and the much needed improvement and increase in the levels of employment. In the course of our work at APRM, we've conducted over 26 reviews in different 26 member states in Africa to assess level of compliance with corporate governance standards and practices. And I must say I was very fortunate to be part of the team that reviewed the Republic of Liberia in 2018 and 2019. This process was started by Her Excellency President Johnson Sirleaf and was concluded under His Excellency President Weah. And during this period, we visited and consulted with business leaders in Monrovia. We traveled to Buchanan, and of course, my most favorite part of the stay was the road trip to Greenville, where we spoke with the youth, the women in the informal trading sector and the agricultural sector to try and understand how we can be of support to ensure that the corporate governance in the country is geared towards supporting the improvement and the growth of these sectors, and specifically women that we find in informal sectors in Liberia and of course other countries. But beyond the scope of corporate governance, I must say I was completely enthralled by the warmth of the people of Liberia and of course your absolutely wonderful food. So it is indeed a special moment for me to witness and participate at the launch of the Institute of Directors. And on behalf of APRM, we're also encouraged by the increasing awareness and improvement in promoting good governance within both the private sector and the public sector. Our research has shown that 19 out of 55 member states in Africa have a framework or codes of corporate governance. And as a result, and as a means to make a contribution by APRM to good corporate governance in Africa, we have developed the African Principles and Guidelines on Corporate Governance. This project is firmly rooted in the acknowledgement that the private sector is the engine for sustainable development on the continent, and that good governance is the foundation for private sector development. So we've determined there's an urgent need to both entrench best practices of corporate governance in the world, but at the same time to be mindful of our own domestic socio-cultural environments. And so we have to put in place codes of corporate governance that are fit for purpose and fit for the business environment that we in our countries aspire to. So on that note, on behalf of APRM, we very much look forward to extending our support to the newly formed Institute of Directors We also remain available to share the expertise that we have gathered from different parts of the continent and also from our collaborative efforts from institutions such as the Organization for Economic Growth and Development, as well as the World Bank. Please be assured of the support and continued cooperation with the African Peer Review Mechanism. And once again, congratulations. We look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite the chair of African Corporate Governance Network, who himself sitting here as chair of the event, to give us the opening address. Mr. Chair is the president of the Institute of Directors Ghana and chairman of the African Corporate Governance Network and the executive chair of Baroque Group. Mr. Chair is a chartered management consultant, a chartered environmentalist, a chartered construction manager, a strategist, an entrepreneur, a corporate governance practitioner. He is a fellow of the Institute of Directors Ghana, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Administrators and Management Consultants, fellow of the Chartered Institute of Building UK, fellow of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors UK, and a chartered member of the Society for the Environment. Mr. Rockson K Dogbegah has over 30 years executive managerial level experience in diverse fields. He has served on over 52 boards and committees in his professional life and has over 30 excellence awards in various disciplines to his credit. Ladies and gentlemen, shall we receive Rockson K Dogbegah? Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Lady Reverend Mrs. Angela Kemanapia. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. I bring you greetings from the leadership of African Corporate Governance Network, ACGN, and other 19 African member countries of ACGN. The ACGN is a collaborative network of director membership organizations that was formed in 2013 to promote effective corporate governance on the African continent. The network now has 28 member organizations from 19 African countries, representing over 20,500 senior executives and directors across the continent. The mission of the ACGN is to develop the institutional capacity of its members and stakeholders for the enhancement of effective corporate governance practices towards building better private and public sector organizations, as well as corporate citizens in Africa. As a strategic imperative, the ACGN aims to facilitate the creation of corporate governance institutions across the continent where none exists. There are about 32 countries on the African continent not yet enrolled as members of the ACGN, while some countries do not have an Institute of Directors nor corporate governance institutions. Our target for 2022 is to be able to create at least 5 corporate governance institutions on the continent. I'm happy to report that the Institute of Directors Liberia is the first to be initiated in the year 2022. To this effect, I wish to commend Mr. Monie Captan, with whom I started some serious discussions in July 2021 on the need to form the Institute of Directors in Liberia. On the 2nd of December 2021, he introduced me to Madam Candace Eastman, the CEO of Africabio Enterprises, Inc. Madam Candace quickly organized a vanguard group which has worked very hard to bring this workshop to fruition as the precursor to the formation of the directors in Liberia, Institute of Directors in Liberia. Let me at this stage acknowledge the members of the vanguard group. Candace Eastman, Mr. Monie Captan, Clarine Vaughn, Stephanie Salamatu Duncan, May Ure, Lillian Best, Lawrence Sika Jipo, Will Bako Freeman, and Roberta Lincoln. I also wish to commend Mr. Patrick D. Chisanga, the chair of the IoD Creation Project, and the IoD Ghana International Relations Committee members, especially the chair of the committee, Professor Smile GC, Mr. Enoch Homia, and Perez Lai for supporting to bring this project to fruition. My appreciation will not be complete if I don't acknowledge the immense contribution given by the Chairs Forum of ACGN and its executive leadership and IoD Ghana Council for agreeing to mentor IoD Liberia. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the risks associated with doing business globally have increased and worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. Although many organizations believe they can effectively address emerging risks, the business landscape has changed considerably, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, where debt crisis and youth disillusionment is forecasted to reach record high levels. The introduction and implementation of the African Free Trade Continental Agreement presents opportunities and challenges which can generate wealth and employment for the continent's youthful population. The responsibility of building thriving and successful businesses rests with boards and directors who are required to build an ecosystem of diverse leaders while solving the continent's real problems. The task of building sustainably successful business entities requires good corporate governance frameworks. The need to enhance good corporate governance culture to promote ethics and integrity, effective controls, good performance, and legitimacy necessitates the formation of professional institutions to promote national capacity in good governance. Directorship has become a profession that requires the establishment of professional institutions to champion professional director training and development. The objectives of establishing an Institute of Directors in Liberia include the development of national capacity in good corporate governance through professional director training in corporate governance, championing advocacy, promoting ethical behaviors, and creating the opportunity for networking among peers locally as well as internationally. The African continent continues to experience corporate governance breaches, which result in our inability to create wealth sustainably. As you might be aware, Ghana faced financial crisis in the banking sector as a result of corporate governance breaches, leading to the loss of 11.7 billion Ghana cedi, as stated in the 2022 budget statement of Ghana, and rendered several people out of employment. Ghana is still working to stabilize its economy while tackling the fresh challenges introduced by COVID-19. I believe the situation in Ghana is not different from other countries. We are also witnesses to serious fights between CEOs and board chairmen. And we have also experienced the poor selection of boards and its effects on organizational performance. These and many others are corporate governance issues that necessitate the establishment and development of appropriate institutions to complement the efforts of other organizations to promote the culture of good corporate governance. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, African countries are at various levels of maturity with regard to the adoption and implementation of corporate governance codes and principles, with a clear lack of such in some countries. What is clear is that good governance is neither a stagnant goal that countries should strive to attain, nor is it a one-size-fits-all framework that can simply be copied and pasted. External and internal factors mean that countries need to continuously adapt to changing environments and implement measures that suit them to meet good governance practices. Governments must undertake a number of important roles that include that of policymaker, enforcer, and overseer, when it comes to corporate governance. Governments must enhance the corporate governance environment by supporting the establishment of regulatory and supervisory institutions, provide a sound legislative framework, and ensure adequate enforcement of law through effective monitoring mechanisms. The promotion and implementation of good corporate governance frameworks is an instrumental tool in both achieving investor confidence and attracting investment. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa faces the immediate challenge of how to reverse persistent and increasing poverty and unemployment, enhance productivity, improve the quality of infrastructure, and create a more attractive and conducive environment for investment. There is global consensus that implementation of the higher standards of corporate governance is crucial and critical to the economic growth and sustainable development and social transformation of the continent. Accordingly, ACGN, as part of its strategic interventions, is embarking on the following activities in collaboration with stakeholders to enhance good corporate governance outcomes in Africa. 1, establishment of corporate governance institutions on the rest of the continent where such are not in existence. 2, promotion of a culture of research in corporate governance. 3, supporting capacity development initiatives of stakeholders. 4, organizing annual Directors Week Conference celebration and excellence awards on the continent. The maiden event is slated for 15th to 18 November 2022. 5, promoting monthly knowledge sharing initiatives. 6, promoting director development and cross-exchange programs to ensure adequate supply of independent directors on the continent for deployment. 7, instituting corporate and director mentorship certification schemes. And 8, standardizing corporate governance training across Africa. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, ACGN is therefore taking the step of initiating the formation of a corporate governance institute in Liberia to ensure the above expectations are met. We shall work closely with the interim leadership in Liberia, various stakeholders, and the government of Liberia to ensure the promotion and development of the appropriate national capacity to promote good corporate governance in Liberia. I wish to call on all stakeholders to support the establishment of the Corporate Governance Institute in Liberia with the much needed funding. The success of the Institute in Liberia is a collective responsibility by all and not for a few individuals. The Institute of Directors Ghana will be providing mentoring support to IoD Liberia. Membership of the Institute of Directors Liberia will be open to corporate and individual members after fulfillment of set criteria and membership requirements. Moving forward from today, IoD Ghana will be collaborating with IoD Liberia to organize training programs accordingly. It is our hope that within 6 months from now, we will be gathered again to launch IoD Liberia and welcome it fully into the fold of ACGN as a member of the network. I wish us all a successful workshop and a successful formation of IoD Liberia. God bless ACGN, the government, and the people of Liberia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. May we know if Mr. Strother is available and ready. Mr. Strother.
Okay, let me say morning to everybody. I'm sorry that I'm not there present because I had a general meeting with the entire business executive in the Republic of Liberia today. But I'm very grateful that this organization is in Liberia to be able to work with us to strengthen our business sector. I say once again, welcome to everybody and welcome to Liberia. We hope to work with you and make sure that we succeed in your endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, We are at a very special event this morning. It is the formation of the Institute of Directors in Liberia, and it is under the African Corporate Governance Network in collaboration with Africabio Enterprises, as well as the Women on Boards Liberia Network. Today, I'm co-hosting with Mrs. Clarine S. Vaughan of the Executive Roundtable of Africabio. My name is Reverend Mrs. Angela Carmen Apia, and I'm the Vice President of the Institute of Directors Ghana, as well as the Acting Board Secretary for the African Corporate Governance Network. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to listen to the special address of a special guest of honor. And a special guest of honor happens to be the Executive Governor of the Central Bank of Liberia, having served in the world's leading multinational financial institutions, the likes of JP Morgan Chase, the Deutsche Bank, and the HSBC. He brings to the role more than 20 years of experience navigating global legal and regulatory frameworks to ethically support the management of trillions of dollars in assets. Ladies and gentlemen, our special guest has worked to ensure alignment of complex investment positions with investors' risk appetites, as well as with anti-money laundering, countering, and other parameters. And prior to becoming CBL governor in 2020, our special guest served as chairman of the board of commissioners of the Liberia Electricity in History and Political Science and a master's degree in public administration. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Honorable J. Aloysius Talu, Jr. Thank you.
So representative of the African Governance Network, representatives of the Institute of Directors, CEO Roundtable, Women on Board Network, the business community, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, both online and here present. Good morning again. Let me begin by thanking you, the organizers, for the invitation to be here at the historic event. This gathering would not have come at a better time when most of our corporate entities are faced with several and varying corporate governance issues. This is not peculiar to Liberia, but the world at large. We all are aware of the failures of many international corporate bodies around the world, especially in the advanced economies. We are reminded about the financial crisis of 2007, which imposed costs on the global economy due to corporate governance failures in the global financial. So some examples of corporate governance failures of record are the Barring banks in 1995, Enron scandal in 2002, Parmalat in 2003, Bear Stearns, AIG failure, and all the housing Fannie Mae, Fannie Mac issues that affected the global economy. So what you are doing here, you are on the right track because the governance is a serious issue. These corporate governance failures in some way motivated development of a set of corporate governance best practices by several international organizations such as the OECD, the World Bank, the Basel Committee on Corporate Governance. As we gather here this morning for this important workshop, it is paramount for us to take stock of these international experiences so as to safeguard our economies against unscrupulous individuals and managers whose actions may cause us significant financial as well as economic losses due to the unimaginable impact of corporate governance failures on our economy. Strong corporate governance, culture, and behavior are indispensable requirements for building strong private sector as well as public sector institutions, and by extension, a strong and viable economy. With these broad comments, permit me now to look at some of the critical components and elements of good corporate governance practices and standards. My remarks in this context will focus on more of the financial institutions, and for a good reason. As a regulator, Central Bank of Liberia is an ardent adherent to good corporate governance practices. We do not compromise this. Firstly, what is corporate governance? According to the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, corporate governance is a set of relationships between stakeholders which provides a structure between stakeholders in the board and management, which provide a structure through which objectives of the company are set and the means of attaining those objectives and monitoring those performances. It helps define the way authority and responsibility are allocated and how corporate decisions are made. The cardinal elements here are greater accountability, transparency, and responsibilities of directors and senior management. This broad definition is applicable to all forms and types of corporate and public institutions. The Basel Committee, which is the standard-setting body for banks, has outlined principles and standards for effective corporate governance in banking institutions. I am pleased to share with you some of the principles and standards. At the center of any corporate governance system, especially in banks, is effective board oversight. It's very, very important. The board has ultimate responsibility for the bank's business strategy and financial soundness, key personnel decisions, internal organization, governance structure and practices, and risk management and compliance obligations. The board should establish and be satisfied that a bank's organizational structure is in place, is consistent with objective. They will enable the board and senior manager to carry out the responsibilities and facilitate effective decision-making and good governance. This includes clearly laying out the key responsibilities, the authorities of the board itself and the senior management, and are more responsible for the smooth functioning of the entity. In essence, what I'm trying to get at is that without oversight, there's a tendency that managers and directors, they run amok. They do their own thing. The responsibility of the board is to make sure that the interest of the entity suffices over the individual interest. We see that in Africa a lot, where boards are very, very not competent enough. They are not aligned based on their different skill set. They are picked because of the relationship with people. They don't have the requisite skills, all right? Because it's not only to form the board, it's what do they bring to the table? Do your board comprise of lawyers, legal people? Is it comprised of technicians? Is it comprised of people who have strong governance background, policy background? But if you do not have a diversified board, right, there's a likelihood that we will not have effective organization. If the board is just a rubber stamp, then you're not going to go anywhere. So this is a good initiative to form this organization here so that we in Liberia can begin to see the importance of board, the formation of board, the skills of the board, and so that we can put people in the right place so that the board brings different diversified skill set to their approaches. If you get all lawyers on the board, that's not a good board. If you get all politicians on the board, that's not a good board. People come to the board with different skill sets and they come together to effect change in the organization. The board should comprise of individuals with a balance, like I say, skills, diversity, and expertise, who collectively possess the necessary qualifications commensurate with the size, complexity, and risk profile of the entity or the bank. The board should provide oversight of senior management. It should hold members of senior management accountable for their actions and enumerate the possible consequences to dismissal if those actions are not aligned with the board performance expectations. This includes adhering to the bank's values or the organizational value, the risk appetite of the organization, the risk culture of the organization under all circumstances. Good governance driven by effective board is an important frontline defense against bad policies, poor conduct, and deficient risk management practices. A competent management must be complemented by a proactive board that places good corporate governance as a priority area of focus. As a regulatory authority, the Central Bank of Liberia places strong emphasis on effective corporate governance as a critical requirement for the proper functioning of the banking sector and the economy as a whole. Banks perform a crucial role in the economy by intermediating funds through savers and depositors for activities that support enterprise and help drive economic growth. Bank safety and soundness are key to financial stability, and the manner in which they conduct their business, therefore, is central and critical to the viability and stability of any economy. Governance weaknesses at banks can result in the transmission of problems across the banking sector and the economy. Well-governed banks contribute to the maintenance of an efficient and cost-effective supervisory process, as there is less need for supervisory intervention. Sound corporate governance may permit the supervisor to place more reliance on the bank's internal processes. In this regard, supervisory experience underscores the importance of having the appropriate levels of authority, responsibility, accountability, and checks and balances within each bank, including those of the board of directors, but also of the senior management and the risk compliance and internal audit functions. The effective implementation of sound corporate governance requires relevant legal, regulatory, institutional foundations, a variety of factors, including system of business laws, stock exchange rules, accounting standards, can affect market integrity and system stability. It is also worth mentioning that ensuring the effectiveness of good corporate governance is not only a task for enterprises, regulators, and supervisors, it is a collective effort of all stakeholders to create a society that duly values ethics, good moral conduct, and integrity. In the Liberian context, the Central Bank of Liberia is committed to promoting sound and effective corporate governance standards and practices in the financial system, especially the banking system, where I'm primarily focused, which are the main custodians or depositors' funds and also play an important role in the Liberian economy. We have not only updated our corporate governance regulations at the CBR, but we have also demonstrated strong commitment to the enforcement of these rules. Corporate governance assessment is a key component of our on-site visit to the banks to make sure that the banks are doing the right thing at the right time to ensure that depositor funding are protected. And where we find any weaknesses, banks are penalized for violations of those weaknesses. Our assessment is not limited to the board of directors, but also to management and the credit risk officers in the banks. As I conclude my remarks, let me applaud the organizers for the Institute of Directors. It is not only a laudable venture that has the potential of significantly transforming our society and contributing positively to our national development agenda. As regulatory authority and as an institution, we should say is governed by the tenets of effective corporate governance, the CBR will fully support this initiative and look forward to collaborating with the Institute in the near future. I want to also state that I've known Monie Captan for a long time. When I first got here to Liberia in the commission, he was one of the people that I talked to a lot, trying to help me to navigate this place. And he instilled corporate governance as the head of the commission, the LARC chairman. We had this to lay on the support of the MCAL and Monie Captan to lay the foundation of good corporate governance. And from my many experiences in working at JP and Merrill Lynch and Bank of New York Mellon, I know corporate governance. I've seen it. I lived the Bear Stearns collapse. I saw 2007 when we were panicking for our jobs because there were bad decisions made in boardrooms. So I want to applaud you all for taking this initiative to start in Liberia a strong corporate governance principle where you can be trainers of other corporations to ensure that the board of directors do the right thing. And starting for women, the issue of equity, the issue of gender balance, the issue of gender adherence is very important. I take this, I am happy with the step you have taken as women to take the initiative to try to be trendsetter for Liberia. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here for this special event, the formation of Institute of Directors Liberia, and we are having a hybrid program online, Zoom, and on ground at the Mamba Point Hotel, Monrovia, Liberia. Ladies and gentlemen, we have heard some solidarity messages. We heard the chair of today's event himself, the chair of the African Corporate Governance Network, and the person of Mr. Rockson K Dogbegah give his opening address. We have also heard a special guest of honor, J. Aloysius Talu Jr. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to go into presentation session. May we invite my co-hosts, co-MC, in the person of Mrs. Clarine Bond to introduce the first presenter. Thank you.
Well, thank you to my lovely co-host, the Lady Reverend Angela Carmen Apia. She has graciously turned over this portion of the program to Liberia so that we can do some introductions of presenters during the next section. Again, I am Clarine Simpson Vaughn. I am the Vice President and COO for Africabio Enterprises and the lead for the Executive Roundtable. It is indeed our pleasure to introduce to you the next speaker. I don't know if I can introduce him as well as the end of the governor's presentation, but I'll make a humble attempt to do so. In the introduction of Mr. Monie Captan, who is a Liberian born, educated here as well as in the US, in California. Mr. Captan is a lecturer at the University of Liberia and has been since 1992. He still currently serves as an adjunct associate professor and at the IBB School of International Relations. He's taught courses in political economy and development, negotiations, and foreign policy decision-making. Mr. Captan served our government in the capacity of Minister of Foreign Affairs from 1996 to 2003, as well as Minister of State for Presidential Affairs from 1995 to 1996. He participated at the time of his service as Minister of Foreign Affairs in the drafting of the AU Charter and several mono-union and ECOWAS protocols. He has served as a member of the ECOWAS Peace and Security Council in its first 2 years and is a signee of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty on behalf of the Republic of Liberia. Mr. Captan was the CEO of the Millennium Challenge Account Liberia with responsibility for the management of the MCC Compact. He successfully implemented and closed the compact in April of 2021. In August of 2021, he was appointed the chairman of the board of directors of the Liberian Electricity Corporation after having served as its director for 5 years. His wealth of experience demonstrates an excellent synergy between public, private, and academic sectors. And above all, he is an avid golfer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce to some and present to others, Monie Captan.
Thank you, Clarine. I'll try to make my statement a little shorter than your introduction. I just want to make one clarification. I'm speaking on corporate governance culture in Liberia in the public sector. I see in the program it says public and private sector. So I just wanted to clarify if you think I'm leaning too much on the public sector. I stand on the previous protocol. It is refreshing to see this initiative take hold in Liberia, and I want to extend special congratulations to all of the organizers of this event. Corporate governance in the public sector in most developing countries, Liberia being no exception, cannot escape the hold of political economy. The public sector may provide revenue, employment, supply chain opportunities, and public services. Most often, these benefits are scarce vis-a-vis the demand. Thus, formal access to these scarce benefits may be trumped by influence peddling, patronage, or simply through transactional relationships. Corporate governance is challenged by the view that the benefits of the public sector should first and foremost inure to the benefit of an incumbent administration and its supporters. Directors are expected to ensure that such benefits accrue to an administration's supporters, or else they may stand accused of not working in the interests of the administration and the ruling party. Hence, the loyalty of the director tends to be directed to the appointing authority rather than the corporation. In Liberia, the late President William V. S. Tubman introduced the Public Relations Officer Program, commonly known as PRO, whereby he enlarged the government's bureaucracy by hiring PROs at an annual cost to the government of $1 million in the 1960s. PROs were appointed based on a patronage system which created a bond between the presidency, the PROs, and their families. Although political patronage existed prior to the Tubman administration, it took strong institutional roots during the Tubman administration. During the Liberian Civil War and the power-sharing government that were established, any semblance of meritocracy was abandoned to accommodate the belligerent factions and their supporters. The civil service was undermined, and the public sector became a means of creating personal wealth for those who wielded state power. Post-war reforms have proven very challenging because patronage over the years has grown to become a way of life in Liberia's political system. Because public corporations generate revenue, allowing them to provide opportunities for employment, income, and access to services, they are usually the vehicle for patronage. In such an environment, corporate governance is highly challenged and requires major reforms. A starting point is the adoption of best practices, as promoted by such organizations like the African Corporate Governance Network. In Liberia, we have to begin by overhauling governance procedures and documents to ensure transparency and accountability. New policies must be formulated aimed at promoting institutional interests and the general public good, while competent executives must be employed and held accountable for their actions and decisions. In most public corporations, the formative legislation confers on the president the power to appoint both the chief executive officer and the board of directors. This practice has weakened the authority of boards and thus corporate governance, because CEOs tend to bypass boards and report directly to the president. There is a strong case to empower boards in the hiring of management. The road to better corporate governance is not only about adopting new behavior or best practices, but it is more about changing the narrative and its attendant adverse normative behavior. Such organizations like the Institute of Directors can usher in the debate about the current narrative and serve as a catalyst for change and better corporate governance. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next presenter, presenting on the key principles of good corporate governance, is Mr. Patrick Chisanga. Mr. Chisanga is the past president of the Institute of Directors in Zambia, and he is currently chair of the new Institute of Directors Creation Project for the African Corporate Governance Network. Mr. Chisanga, we turn over to you, and thank you for your presentation in advance.
First of all, allow me to thank the co-hosts, Carmen and Clarine. I think they're doing an excellent job since the workshop started this morning, and I have been following every step of the way. In the interest of time, I would like to write on the protocols that have already been established so that we do not run out of time. But allow me to recognize the chair of the ACGN, my brother and my friend, Mr. Rockson K, Dogbegah, because I believe he has been providing outstanding leadership since the formation of, since he took over as chair of ACGN, really, and hence we are where we are this morning. I'd also like to pay tribute to our technical personnel in ACGN for making it possible for me to participate in this workshop from thousands of kilometers away. This is the great credit we can earn from technology. In spite of COVID, we've been able to adapt and adopt. I have been assigned the responsibility to spearhead the committee that is advancing the creation of new IoDs across the African continent. As you heard from Chair Rockson, at the moment we are in about 19 countries. We have IoDs in about 19 countries, which leaves about upwards of 32 countries we still don't have IoDs. And you've heard presentation after presentation, the power and the value of corporate governance in advancing our economies, and hence our desire to see that corporate governance embraces the entire African continent in order to advance our economies even further. So this is a very brief presentation on the key principles of corporate governance, which Chair Rockson asked me to prepare as part of the inauguration workshop. And I have structured it in such a way that I can bring out actually the key principles without a very long presentation. Corporate governance, as you know, is a very wide subject, and one can go on and on and on. So I intend, first of all, to look at the definition of corporate governance. I thought that it would be good that we start from a common understanding of what corporate governance is. And corporate governance has been very widely defined by various authorities on corporate governance. But the one definition that I would like to share this morning is one that was developed through the Cadbury Report of 1992. Those of us who have been following the development of corporate governance in the Commonwealth will recollect that somewhere around 1990, the leaders of the Commonwealth met in Edinburgh to discuss the issue of corporate governance and extending its frontiers across the Commonwealth. And a committee was put together under the chairmanship of Sir Adrian Cadbury of the UK. And that report is very instructive on understanding where we have come from. But the long and short of it is, this is the definition that I like, that came out of that great work. And it simply says, corporate governance has been defined as the system. So we note that corporate governance is, in the first place, a system by which companies and organizations are governed, controlled, and managed. And when you look at this definition, there are elements here which we need to recognize. As I said, number one is that it's a system. Number two, there is a governance element. And the governance element and control element is in the hands of the board of directors, and then the management. And This definition embraces a number of concepts and important dimensions. Let me regulate some of them. First, it regulates the exercise of power, authority, and direction. Now, people who run organizations, who are members of board of directors, who are CEOs, they have a lot of power in their hands, conferred by the enabling acts and other legislation gives them a lot of power in their hands. And that power needs to be regulated because, as you know, power does get to people's heads and they can go all over the map and do all kinds of things. So corporate governance will regulate the power in the hands of the board, the power in the hands of the CEO, the power in the various elements within the corporate governance framework in an organization. It also regulates the authority that is conferred on different elements, the direction that the organization is taking, and the control within the organization. And the whole purpose is to ensure that the organization's purpose is achieved on a sustainable basis. Now, what is the key objective of corporate governance? I would say the key objective of corporate governance is to ensure that every organization, be it a public organization, Mr. Captan was talking about public sector principally, but what he was saying applies to the private sector as well, equally. So the key objective is to ensure that all organizations are governed in a way that is consistent with the principles of good corporate governance. So the question is, what are these key principles of corporate governance? And I have prepared 8 principles that I want to share. 1, integrity. In my book, integrity ranks as the #1 principle in corporate governance. Integrity at the personal level amongst members of the board of directors. Integrity amongst the management members of the organization and down the line. Question is, how do we define integrity? I was making a presentation in Captan a few years ago, and I posed this question in the room, and somebody said to me, well, I think integrity is what people say about you when you have left the room. Think about that. Somebody else said at another workshop that I was addressing, they said, well, integrity is what you do when you think no one else is watching you. Think about that. Integrity, I rank it as #1. And if the key elements, directors, management members, can pass the integrity test, the organization itself will pass the integrity test. So I give it to you as my #1 principle. My second principle is responsibility. Every organization is encouraged to undertake a stakeholder mapping. In other words, to establish and understand how many organizations, how many other organizations, how many other people, how many other entities will be affected by the actions, omissions, and whatever happens in that particular organization. And what emerges will tell you the width and breadth of your responsibility. Every organization has a wide spectrum of stakeholders to whom they are responsible, and they need to remember that. #3, accountability. Accountability refers to the entity or entities that established the organization. In the case of the public sector, state-owned enterprises, these are mainly as we heard from Mr. Captan's presentation, these are mainly government-owned across Africa. And every board, every organization should always remember that they are accountable to the government, but ultimately, actually, to the nationals of that particular economy. That is as far as the public sector is concerned. In terms of the private sector, it is the shareholders. And this could be institutional shareholders or individual shareholders. And they have the power of hire and fire to the board. So you have that accountability responsibility to the shareholders. 4, transparency. In today's modern world, no organization can be conducted and run in secrecy, where you sweep things, your decisions, your terrible decisions, sweep them under the carpet, and nobody can question the basis upon the decisions in your organization are being taken. You will not last very long. Today, transparency has become paramount. What with all the technology, with all the means of communication, you've got to make sure that your organization observes the principle of transparency and stand up to public probity. You should be able to do that. Number 5, effectiveness. Effectiveness speaks to your ability to deliver on your mandate as an organization. So boards of directors or board members should make an effort to understand what is the mandate of their organization, because their effectiveness will be judged mainly on their ability to deliver on their mandate. That is what to be referred to, whether people say that organization is effective or it is not effective. Effectiveness, the number 5 principle. Number 6, efficiency. Really, efficiency is the measure of the quality of the effectiveness in terms of how you manage your resources, how you manage your time, how you manage your human resource. Are you doing so efficiently or inefficiently? Because these will reflect in the cost buildup. Efficiency, a very, very important principle to any board of directors, any organization. And today, if you're not efficient, if you're not effective, 2 sides of the same coin, you'll be very quickly shown the door. Number 7, sustainability. It's very important that organizations are sustainable. In other words, they were here yesterday, they are here today, and they are here tomorrow. Sustainability, if you look at the King Report, has now come out as one of the major principles that are discussed. And you have to look at a particular economy and just do a mapping and see how many organizations have been around for more than 5 years, for more than 10 years, for more than 20 years, for more than 30 years, for more than 50 years. It's a measure of their sustainability. And boards of directors should aspire to achieve high levels of sustainability in their organizations. Finally, I reflect on reliability. Every organization must aspire to be reliable. If an organization is not reliable, it will very quickly lose any form of credibility and any form of clientele. and that will see its demise. Every organization should aspire to a position where the stakeholders, and there's a wide spectrum of stakeholders across the economy, across the international economy now, are able to say that organization, the ACGN, is reliable. That's what we need to aspire to. So, fellow directors, distinguished participants, these are the 8 principles, key principles, that I want to invite you to reflect upon. And in particular, the new Institute of Directors that we are beginning to develop here in Liberia. This is a good starting point. Observe these 8 principles of corporate governance. Now, I want to talk about the relationship between the shareholders, the board, the management, employees, and other stakeholders, because these are the pillars of corporate governance. You will find that in many organizations, the challenges that can arise in corporate governance have to do with the type of relationship that has been woven and developed between the shareholders, the board, the management, employees, and other stakeholders. In some organizations, you find that the shareholders have a certain expectation. They have a certain key performance indicators that they are seeking. But you may find that the board, on the other hand, for whatever reason, are pulling in a different direction. If you look at some of the international scandals in corporate governance that we have seen over the last 30 years, you will see that some of them were as a result of a discord between the shareholders and the board. Because in some cases, you find that the board or some members of the board forget their accountability principle to their shareholders. They have their own pocket agendas. Look at Enron. That's part of what went wrong in Enron. The management, there must be a sound relationship between the board and management. Again, if there is no sound relationship between the board and management, and I was interested to listen to Mr. Captan referring to situations where the shareholders appoint both the board and the CEO. We had a situation here in my country, in Zambia, and this matter is now in the public domain, so I'm quite comfortable to refer to it. Zambia Railways, our national railway carrier. There was a point at which the government of the day appointed the CEO, a very competent Zambian. I'd spent years abroad, but the president appointed the CEO. In fact, the CEO was appointed before the board was appointed. And later on, the board was appointed. And it was composed of very distinguished ladies and gentlemen. But alas, there were differences in the boardroom. The CEO felt he'd been there before and he had charted his own way. He was developing his own strategic plan, which was not necessarily consistent with what the new board had in mind. And because both the board and the CEO were appointed by the same authority, you can see that the loyalty to the board was diminished. It ended up in a collapse of the corporate governance system in that boardroom. And the rest is history. In the end, they had to get back to the drawing board, dissolve the board completely, including the CEO and the board chair and everybody. and reassemble a new board who now had the mandate to appoint the CEO. And things have been running smoothly since. So these are examples of where principles of corporate governance have been compromised and what can happen. The same applies at the employee and stakeholder level. You will find many examples of this nature. So many of the guidelines and the codes of corporate governance, codes of best practice that have been developed and are continuing to be developed are directed towards reducing the potential for conflict between the various stakeholder groups. And I want to appeal to the new team we are going to usher in today to keep in mind these fundamental principles. And when we begin to train the boards, as we should, to train members of various boards, these are the principles that should be treated as fundamental to developing strong boards. So corporate governance will seek to harmonize the interests of the shareholders, the interests of the board, the management, employees, and other stakeholders, including the interests of the community in which various corporate entities operate. It is called good citizenship, corporate citizenship. I promise to be brief so that I do not stray all over the map. I wanted to bring out certain points that can be ingrained in your minds. If I say too many things, you'll find it difficult as to what is the takeaway. What were the key principles that Patrick Chisanga was talking about? But I wanted to capture them in this manner, in such a way that you can have a good, clear takeaways. And I hope I've been able to do that. So let me conclude by saying, in my experience, there's evidence across the African continent to testify to my view, which I have also espoused in a book I wrote some 2 years ago on the growth and development of corporate governance in Zambia. There's sufficient evidence. If you look at and analyze and take a status audit of the economies across Africa, you will find that sound corporate governance ultimately results in one, efficient and competitive companies and organizations, unquestionably. And very importantly, as a result, corporate governance results in strong and sustainable economies. It is for this reason, ladies and gentlemen, that we in the ACGN will now want to take corporate governance to the other 30-odd countries where corporate governance in terms of IoDs does not exist. Because we believe that the future of Africa, the future of strong economies in Africa, is closely bound with the development of sound corporate governance practices, best practices. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attention.
Good morning, Dr. Chisanga. Thank you. I'm not sure if you can see me from here. Thank you thank you for your presentation. I particularly found your 8 principles very helpful. My question specifically is similar to the one that was posed to Mr. Captan, but I would like to hear it from another jurisdiction. You gave an example of how corporate governance broke down in your country in a boardroom in an instance. And I mean, that's unfortunate, and I think we've heard that several times over. What I'm curious to hear is how did that particular example re-emerge? Because I mean, I don't know if it was in the same way that Mr. Captan mentioned through legislative reforms, but I think from what I understand from the group in this room, we're definitely forward-thinking and forward-looking, and are likely to already be in spaces where this is the status quo. So how do we make ourselves more agents of change to be able to do this? And learning from that experience is what I'm hoping you can share a bit of insight on. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That's a very, very insightful observation and question. Well, in our situation in Zambia, since we started the Institute of Corporate Governance some 22 years ago, in 1998, we've been on a journey to embrace various government administrations. And we have had 4 different political parties, and we're, assuming government. We're now on our 7th president. That's how democratic we are in this country. We feel quite proud about this. And we have engaged various successive governments on issues of corporate governance. And there was a time in our country when all the state-owned enterprises, they were chaired by either a cabinet minister or a permanent secretary. And there were a lot of government officials on the board, and with a sprinkling of members from the private sector. Now, you can appreciate that corporate governance could not really thrive in that kind of situation. And so through constant dialogue with various governments, and I remember I had already left the chairmanship, the presidency of the IoD Zambia, but I was part of the delegation to call on one of our former state presidents, the late Levi Mwanawasa, who was very, very receptive to good advice. We sat down and said, Mr. President, this business of appointing permanent secretaries and ministers, these are very busy people in the public sector. Really, it does not serve to advance corporate governance. And we articulated the issues. And it was very pleasing to see the response of that state president. And he started the process, which, and I have to admit, other subsequent presidents in our country have since followed, including our new president, who took office just a few months ago. There is no permanent secretary now or minister who is chair of a state-owned enterprise. They are all being driven by the private sector. Independent people are chairing boards. We do have elements on the boards to provide some useful information and so on. And so that hiccup we saw in Zambia Railways, which I referred to, I don't think will ever be repeated here, which means we have made good progress. And we want to look at other elements. For instance, the appointment of members of the board of directors in state-owned enterprises. In many cases, this is squarely the prerogative of the minister responsible for that particular sector. And what we have observed is that, when there's a change of government, you expect this at that level anyway. The boards, and it's going on now, boards are being changed and new people appointed and so on and so forth. But what is worse is to have, even in the same government, when a new minister comes into this particular ministry, that's the end of the life of many boards falling under that ministry. Now, this does not add value to the growth and sustainability of corporate governance, because companies and organizations are in a permanent state of transition, if you see what I mean. So we have tried to share, and as I said, governments are being quite receptive, the need for sustainability, the need for continuity, so that members on the board must serve at least a period of 3 years. They can be retained for another 3 years or recycled and so on, such that there's always a good mix on the board. So in my answer to your very good observation, I want to say with tremendous satisfaction that in this country, corporate governance has been embraced by successive governments, and we are moving in the right direction. I don't want to be complacent. I want to say a lot has been done, but much more remains to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chisanga, for your response. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce our final presenter for this morning, Dr. Mike Eric Juru. He is currently the Vice Chairman for the African Corporate Governance Network, President of the Institute of Directors in Zimbabwe, and he will be presenting to us on the objectives, membership benefits, and formation requirements for an Institute of Directors.
Thank you very much to our very able Director of Service. And it is such an honor to be this afternoon all the way from Zimbabwe as my brother, my big brother, Mr. Chisanga has mentioned. Technology has enabled us to be with you in Monrovia whilst we are in Zimbabwe, whilst in our own countries. Without COVID, we would have been with you to enjoy the moment, to share the experience of such a momentous event. In the interest of time, allow me to proceed with the business of the day. Chairman, Honorable Governor, our hosts, guests, ladies and gentlemen. In the first place, I would like to thank you all who worked tirelessly leading to this gathering and giving a chance to African Governance Network to play its part and participate in the launch of the Institute of Directors of Liberia. I wish to convey to you, Mr. Chairman, and the members here present, warm greetings from Zimbabwe and from the Institute of Directors in general and the ACGN in particular as well. Mr. Chairman, you have highlighted the network is a continental mandate to support with practical assistance voluntary initiatives that lead to good corporate governance outcomes. But I wish to take this opportunity to give a caution that corporate governance is not an overnight wonder. It is a journey and sometimes a slow one, with many challenges as well as opportunities. Great persistence, perseverance, and resistance is expected from the members and the participants. In Zimbabwe, for instance, we launched IoD some 65 years ago as a private sector initiative. In the process of finding ourselves and working on being a better governance champion, as this is a journey and not a destination. In the past years, we have managed to develop a strong and sustainable data training program, which now embraces both the private sector as well as the public sector. We have managed directors thereby contributing significantly to boardroom in various companies and organizations. I would like to briefly reflect on the role and impact of corporate governance on sustainable development in emerging economies such as Africa. During his visit to Ghana in 2009, July 2009, the President of the United States of America, Barack Obama, had the following to say on the issue of development in Africa. But Africa's future is up to Africans. Development depends upon good governance. That is the ingredient which has been missing. That is the change that can unlock Africa's potential. It is a responsibility that can only be made by Africans. Words, I'm sure, ring true to each and every country on the African continent. When we examine the current status of corporate governance in the countries which launched corporate governance earlier, Mr. Chairman, we observe that there are some disparities between the levels of economic development attained and the levels of new investments flowing into the various countries. The launch of Institute of Directors in Liberia is a starting point. Allow me, Mr. Chairman, to share and reiterate the principal objectives and objectives of any IoD. The first point, to promote excellence, enterprise, and integrity in the directors of all companies, to improve knowledge and skills with respect to their rights, duties, responsibilities, and liabilities, and to inculcate the highest standards of ethics among such directors, and to raise standards of corporate governance within the business community, to provide an effective voice for common directors in public affairs, and for that purpose, to take continuing and effective interest in legislation, economic and social matters, and the law generally, to ensure the preservation of basic commercial freedom and to prevent abuse of such freedom, and maintain the concept of corporate entity and the of limited liability, the preservation and furtherance of free enterprise systems. Acknowledge the complementary contribution to the economy made by both large and small businesses, to promote interest in the institute and its object, and in particular, to promote, establish, and maintain branches of the institute to carry out the objects and conduct of the local affairs of the institute, and to promote, establish, and maintain and/or control committees and other forms of organizations and administration for the purpose of enlarging the influence and operation of the institute. Other parties and organizations, whether they be domiciled within or without Liberia, provided that the objects in whole or part similar to the institute. Plan, arrange, sponsor, conduct training courses relating to the duties and responsibilities of common directors and all major subjects relating to the direction of companies, which are for the improvement of benefits to common directors. That seminars, conferences, workshops, and every form of lectures or discussion groups relating to any business matter falling within the scope of the activities. For the institute to implement the objects of the envisaged object, the institute is to subsidize, promote, cooperate with, receive into union or affiliation, subscribe and donate to or become a member of, control, manage, superintend, lend or give monetary assistance or otherwise aid, associations, institutions, organizations, incorporated or not incorporated, and whether within Liberia or elsewhere, provided they have objects that are similar to the objects of the IoD Liberia. For the purpose that in the objects of the institute to raise money by all lawful means and to solicit, receive, and invest financial and other aid and assistance from individuals, trust companies, corporations, associations, societies, institutions, and other organizations or authorities, and to conduct fundraising campaigns, to make known and further the objects and activities of the institute by publication, distribution of papers, journals, and other publications, by making the same known by any means thought to be convenient and desirable, to operate closed bank accounts from banks and registered financial institutions, and draw, make, acceptance, endorse, discount, or execute a promissory notes. Everything that goes with the financial instruments. We should all take note that IoD is not for profit, membership-driven organization, and ordinarily the creation of a constitution. It is a constitution that the operations are defined, and these include the election of leadership, the terms of office, the membership, the objects that I have mentioned earlier on, the powers that are within the institute, they are all derived from the constitution. So as we progress, IoD Liberia would need to have its own constitution which will define how they conduct their business. I mentioned that IoDs are all membership organizations, and ordinarily members which fall into two categories. You have your corporate members and the individual. About the individuals, full membership of the teamed institution is for trained and experienced directors who make the individual members. This now can be stratified to those who are still in training, those who have completed the training, and to extend the honorary life members, the life members, those who will be your veteran members within the institute. And all those, they come in defined by your constitution. Beyond the individuals, we have the corporate members, organizations to participate in the affairs of the Institute of Directors. These corporate members, they bring in the participation of more members. And above that, they drive the revenues. You need revenues, you need cash inflows, which become the lifeblood of your operations. It's critical for the sustenance of the institute. And the members, corporate members, they can also come categorized, your platinum, your biggest sponsors, and beyond members coming in to join you, naturally, there's need for benefits, which the leadership will determine in the context of your respective countries and your capabilities, your networking. With membership of the IoD to say ACGN, the benefits extend beyond the borders to other respective IoDs in other jurisdictions. Being a national member in IoD, say Zimbabwe, we have signed an agreement with IoD Ghana, and our members, when they get to Ghana, they will have the benefits that IoD Ghanaians would get. The same for Zimbabwe. If someone from Ghana comes in, they will get the benefits in Zimbabwe. And we have arranged our benefits based on our corporate membership. We have hotel groups that offer discounts to members of the IoD because they are our corporate members and they recognize that, and they would gladly accept our members, give them discounts. Renting companies, they also play a part. They are our members, and our members, they the benefit of getting a discount if they go to their business. You see that creates more excitement, more activities, more interest in the IoD beyond the governance issues. It's also about the bottom line. I wish to provide a major point for consideration going forward. And working in collaboration with your government cannot be overlooked, as it plays a critical or pivotal role in creating an enabling environment for IoD to thrive in a robust democratic system and contribute meaningfully towards improving the economy of the country. The IoD would have no enforcement mechanism, but the government through its statutes can provide that. I'll give you an example from my country, Zimbabwe. The IoD worked with its partners to create the National Code on Corporate Governance, and it was adopted by the government to become law. And hence the importance of working with your government. Mr. Chairman, we trust IoD Liberia will do well to stay abreast of all these exciting developments, as well as consolidating the growth and development of corporate governance in their beautiful country. Allow me to, Mr. Chairman, by once again thanking Liberia for having accepted to take this corporate governance journey and partnering with ACGN on this day to mark the official launch of IoD Liberia. Long live IoD Liberia, long live ACGN, long live IoD Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mike Eric Juru, President, IoD Zimbabwe, Vice Chair, ACGN. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to have the formation resolution, also formation of interim leadership. And I humbly invite the chair of today's ceremony, as well as Chair ACGN, in the person of Mr. Rockson K, Dogbegah, to take us through the motions. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Lady Reverend. So far, so good. It's been a very, very interesting session. I believe members have listened, particularly our friends and colleagues in Liberia. At this stage, we need to move a motion to form an Institute of Directors in Liberia. And may I invite any participants in Liberia to move this motion. The floor is open.
Good morning, all protocol observed. Thank you for the opportunity in coming to this all-important gathering. On behalf of Liberia and my company, Futa Corporation, I, Omaru A. Barry of Futa Corporation, have moved, or if I can receive a second, for the formation for the Institute of Directors to be formed in the Republic of Liberia.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Omaru Ebaro. Thank you. Now, may I have any seconder to the motion, please?
I made right, Juru, so second.
Thank you very much. Any objection to the motion to form Institute of Directors in Liberia? And now may I see by hands, all those who support the motion. And here I'll call on the co-MC in Monrovia at the moment to help get the numbers for us. Could you please manage this session for me by giving me the hands up? Are all hands up?
All hands are up, sir. We have a unanimous vote.
All right. All hands are up, but for purposes of record, let me have, any objection, anybody objecting to the formation? Are there any hands up?
There's one hand up, but his hand was also up for the acceptance.
Anybody
Sir, counted once.
All right, okay. Anybody in the neutral position?
There are no objections, Mr. Chair.
Right, thank you. So in the absence of no objection, the vote is carried. It's a unanimous decision to form IoD Liberia. And congratulations to the people of Liberia. Thank you very much. Now my second assignment here, it is about appointing interim leadership. Having moved the motion to form, which is accepted, the next is about forming an interim leadership to steer the affairs of IoD Liberia. The ACGN leadership recognized the tremendous role played by the Vanguard Group, gave the opportunity to the Vanguard Group to conduct elections among themselves to be able to elect interim leaders to steer the affairs and to such them that we are fully formed and we can conduct a democratic elections. And so at this stage, I would want to announce the interim leadership of the Institute of Directors Liberia. The first person is Madam Candace Eastman, who will be the interim chairman. And with all apology, may I crave the indulgence of all these interim executives that I'm about to call in to step forward. And if it is possible for the organizers to direct the camera so we can see them, that will be great. Madam Candace, please step forward. You've been elected and appointed as the interim chairman. Lillian Best, the interim vice chair. Clarine Vaughan, the treasurer. Lawrence Sikadipo, the secretary. May Juru, the committee member, Will Bako Freeman, a committee member, and Roberta Lincoln, a committee member. I would wish to read out the terms of reference very quickly. Distinguished members of the House, the terms of reference for the interim leadership of Institute of Directors Liberia is as follows. Broadly, they are to facilitate the formation of the Institute of Directors of Liberia and the associated organizational setup as well as related issues, including the following specific terms of reference. 1, lead the creation process of the Institute of Directors in Liberia. 2, lead the registration of the Institute in Liberia. 3, identify opportunities for training and to facilitate capacity development sessions in collaboration with the mentoring institution. 4, lead membership recruitment drives. 5, lead stakeholder engagement and strategic collaborations. 6, sign an agreement with the mentoring institution and consultant. 7, seek funding for the institute. 8, plan and organize the launch of the institute. 9, organize democratic elections not later than 2 years from the date of this appointment, and work closely with the ACG and other stakeholders to ensure the proper establishment and growth of the Institute of Directors in Liberia. Your tenure of service is a maximum duration of 2 years. At the end of the first year, the interim leadership shall report to the ACG on progress towards the ultimate goal. It is expected that the interim leadership will offer ethical and effective leadership. The interim leadership will take office immediately. After this process, the mentoring institution shall organize the appropriate induction, orientation, and training sessions in leadership and corporate governance for the leadership. On this note, I would want to congratulate the interim leadership for these achievements. Congratulations and well done. At this stage, may I crave the indulgence of our special guest of honor and Mr. Monie Captan to give a handshake and congratulate this interim leadership on behalf of ACGN. And whilst they do that, I'll crave the indulgence of photographers to take some very good photos for history, because today we have made history. So after the congratulations, the interim leader, the interim chair, Madam Candace, will give a short acceptance speech on behalf of the team. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to ACGN and the IoD Ghana for this opportunity. Thank you to our participants here in Liberia for this honor it's such an honor to accept this task. It's quite a huge task, but I feel very confident that with what I've heard in the room today and the showing today, that certainly we are ready to focus on corporate governance in Liberia and promote it, advocate for it, and conduct the business of the organization. There's still, of course, lots of work to do. We have to work together to create the path to actually formulate the organization and launch it. So this is only the beginning, and I will ask all of you to join in moving this forward along with us. We cannot do it without you, And as you heard over and over again today, corporate governance is something that requires the collective. It's not something that we can do on our own. And we want to be sure that together we can build the right business environment in Liberia, because it's good for all of us, for all of our institutions, our corporations. It's good individually for us to work together through this process to ensure that we certainly have the capacity to do this work as well. So I will be reaching out to everyone in this room at some point to help us to create that path, sit on committees, ensure that the organization is Liberian owned and it is customized to fit our environment. I thank you again for your attendance, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Madam Candace, congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you very much for closing that phase. We will humbly invite you to give us your closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Under this window, I have three things to do here: the closing remarks, the way forward, and the communique. But I would want to start off with the communique. Communique: establishment of Institute of Directors in Liberia, the workshop held on the 10th of February 2022. And I read as follows: ACGN, in collaboration with Africabio, Executive Roundtable and Women on Boards Network Liberia and other stakeholders, held a hybrid workshop on the 10th February 2022. A total of 42 delegates were present at the Mamba Point Hotel in Liberia, while 39 delegates participated remotely online. At the end of the workshop, it was noted as follows: their objectives of establishing the Institute of Directors in Liberia include the development of national capacity in good corporate governance through professional director training in corporate governance, championing advocacy, promoting ethical behaviors, and creating the opportunity for networking among peers locally as well as internationally, among others. 2, the key principles of corporate governance are integrity, responsibility, accountability, transparency, effectiveness, efficiency, sustainability, and reliability. 3, the relationship between shareholders, the board, management, employees, and other stakeholders is at the center of many of the challenges that can arise in the practice of good corporate governance. 4, corporate governance is challenged by the view that the benefits of the public sector should first and foremost be near to the benefit of the incumbent administration and its supporters. Directors are expected to ensure that such benefits accrue to an administration's supporters, or else they may stand accused of not working in the interests of the administration and the ruling party. Hence, the loyalty of the director tends to be directed to the appointing authority rather than the corporation. 5, the responsibility of building thriving and successful businesses principally rests with directors, who are required to build an ecosystem of diverse leaders whilst proffering solutions to the continent's real problems. 6, the task of building a sustainably successful business demands concerted effort and commitment to implement the fundamental principles of good corporate governance. 7, the need to enhance a good corporate governance culture to promote ethical leadership, effective controls, good performance, and legitimacy makes the establishment of a professional institution to promote national capacity in good governance in Liberia an imperative. 8, the African continent is faced with corporate governance breaches, which result in its inability to create wealth sustainably. 9, some boards lack the critical skill set to effect change. 10, in Liberia, there is the need to overhaul the governance procedures, processes, and practices to ensure transparency and accountability. 11, new policies must be formulated aimed at promoting institutional interest and the greater public good, while competent executives must be employed and held accountable for the actions and decisions. 12, in most public corporations, the formative legislation confers on the president the power to appoint both the chief executive officer and the board of directors. This practice has weakened the authority of boards and thus corporate governance, because CEOs tend to bypass boards and report directly to the president. 13, there is a strong case to empower boards in their hiring of management. 14, good corporate governance is perhaps the single most important factor in eradicating poverty and promoting development. 15, Africa's immediate challenges are how to reverse the persistent and increasing poverty and unemployment, enhance productivity in the real sectors, improve the quality of infrastructure, and create a more attractive and conducive environment for investment. 16, Liberia requires the effective mobilization and use of its vast resources by a critical mass of efficient, competitive, and sustainable enterprises to constitute a thriving private sector to drive the growth and transformation of the country. 17, good quality ethical decision-making builds sustainable businesses and enables them to create long-term value more effectively. It's important to investors since it shows companies' direction and business integrity. 18, all stakeholders agree that implementation of the higher standards of corporate governance is crucial and critical to the economic growth, sustainable development, and social transformation of Liberia. The implementation of good corporate governance ensures security and stability by mobilizing the citizenry to engage, participate, and be more effectively involved in the development process. A starting point is the adoption of best practices as promoted by such organizations like the African Corporate Governance Network. There will be the need to develop a national corporate governance code for Liberia. 21, the ACGN is therefore taking the step of initiating the formation of a corporate governance institute in Liberia to enhance good governance outcomes to alleviate poverty. 22, evidence across the African continent abounds to testify that sound corporate governance results in efficient economies and organizations, as well as strong and sustainable economies. At the end of the workshop, participants resolved that an institute of directors should be established in Liberia. 24, the ACGN leadership has appointed a 7-member interim leadership chaired by Ms. Candace Eastman to facilitate the creation of the Institute of Directors in Liberia, and shall work closely with the interim leadership in Liberia, other stakeholders, and the government of Liberia to ensure the promotion and development of the appropriate national capacity to promote good corporate governance in Liberia. Thank you. This is signed, and this is signed by the chair of the African Corporate Governance Network. Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We are getting to the close of today's proceedings. Next on the agenda for me is about moving forward. Let me begin by stating that today history has been made by this strategic seed sown to initiate the formation of IoD Liberia. Let me again congratulate the interim leadership of IoD Liberia and the Vanguard Group that made this happen. Moving forward, the interim leadership of IoD Liberia will work with stakeholders to promote ethical culture and effective leadership in Liberia through stimulating the debate about the current corporate governance narrative in Liberia, and to serve as a catalyst for change and better corporate governance in Liberia. IoD Ghana will be collaborating with IoD Liberia to organize training programs accordingly. It's our hope that within 6 months from now, we'll be gathered here again to have a grand launch of IoD Liberia and to welcome it fully into the fold of ACGN as a member of the network. And then we'll also expect that members will indicate their interest in the training programs and in membership of IoD Liberia. I wish to thank all our speakers, including the Deputy Governor of the Bank of Liberia and all our speakers and our collaborators. Executive Roundtable, Women on Board Network Liberia, Liberia Business Associations, Liberia Chamber of Commerce, IFC, ESG Advisory, Lead for North and West Africa, MOS, APRM, and IMC, Lady Reverend Mrs. Angela Kemenapia and our co-MC, Clarine, and our technical team for a great work done. Congratulations to all of you. Congratulations, well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. On this note, may I invite Dr. T. Nelson Williams, Chief Administrative Officer, Connex Oil and Gas Holdings, for our closing prayer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and I just want to, first of all, thank everyone, those sitting in this hall and those that are online. I believe that everyone thought this was a worthwhile event, and that's what you exercise patience to be here this afternoon. Again, congratulations to the interim leadership, and we look forward to you leading this initiative in Liberia. The vote of thanks have already been given, but I would like to recognize and thank a group. If you're a woman and you're a CEO, COO, owner of a company, or serve on the board, please stand. Okay, look around the room. We have women who are leaders in the private and public sector. When the governor spoke about diversity on boards, he talked about the professional aspect, having legal, having financial, where these people blend their skills and talents to move boards and organizations forward. But one aspect of diversity is also gender diversity. The next level that will help transform the private and public sector in our country and in the region. We ask you to take full control now as we lead, protect us, guide us from all sin, harm, and danger. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you.